Space is tight, your family is growing, moving, especially in this economy, is not an option. Sound familiar? Building an ADU, or accessory dwelling unit, in your backyard is a pretty good idea, but it may not be as easy as it sounds. Take it from me. If you're new here, hi, I'm Meredith. I'm a single mother by choice who lives with her mother, Nana. She's helping raise my little guy, Oscar. My sperm donor is my gay best friend, Michael, from college. He comes to visit often. So if that setup sounds like fun, subscribe, like, comment, join the fun. I started this channel to document my IVF process, but now that I'm through that and it worked, we're just documenting life. So if you want to see how a gal takes care of an infant and her septuagenarian mother, have I got a channel for you? My mom, Janie, has decided to move to California full time. A little bit more on that later, so more space was absolutely necessary. My mother and I moved into this house in October of 2021. Time flies. And it's great. It's a mid-century modern house with a detached garage, and she and I settled on turning this, I'm in it right now, this is it, it happened, we finished it. But we decided to turn this garage into an ADU pretty unanimously. I mean, neither of us fought each other on it, and that's saying something. We don't always see eye to eye on things. It was a natural choice. We both thought it'd be nice to have another living area kind of separate from the house. The house itself is about 1,300 square feet, so it's kind of tiny, and when we both want to relax without sequestering ourselves to our bedrooms, there's just no option for that. So an ADU it was. Now, I have encouraged her to take this as her own separate space. When we first moved in, we didn't anticipate that she would be here all the time. And since my entire life was in California and her entire life was in Florida, I took the primary suite here and she got one of the smaller bedrooms because she was going to be going back and forth. But now that she's going to be out here full time, I said, Mom, you've gotta have your own space. But she's pretty committed to this being what we would call a rumpus room. The vibe is a media room. We've got a lot of books, we got a lot of CDs, we got a lot of DVDs, and we're not getting rid of those even though it's 2025, sorry. Kind of like a library, basement vibes. We also want to put a sleeper sofa in here so that it's a great space for guests to come when they need. And when you live behind Disneyland, that's more frequent than it isn't. I've always been obsessed with floor plans. It's one of my calming things that I do. I'll open up a floor plan site and put in a whole bunch of theoretical scenarios of how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms and stuff. I like to find the most unique floor plans I can think of. I like to think of how I would convert old buildings like banks or churches into living spaces. It's just so fun for me. Obviously, you need an architect when you're doing a heavy duty job like this, but I didn't know how much detail an architect would need. So I just went ahead and drew something up on my own. I've always been an over-preparer, always been at the front of the class. It was expected. It's really no surprise that I put this much work into it. There are a few things that we knew that we needed. Up front, number one, we needed a tub. Our house, when we purchased it, where a tub probably had been converted into a walk-in shower. I miss bathing, and I knew that a little one was on the way because we started this project around the time I started IVF. More on that later. And I knew I was going to need a tub to wash a little baby. So tub was number one. We haven't made the most of it yet, but there's a lovely space outside, and we know we want to have garden parties, but we can't leave the doors open to the house because we have cats. So having the doors open to this space and having a little kitchenette in here, we knew was going to be really important. So that was thing number two. Thing number three was storage. So because we were losing storage space in here as a garage, we don't have any coat closets in the house. We knew we need a place to put some things. I knew I wanted all pocket doors in here to maximize wall space because, you don't think about how much room a door really takes up when you open it, and you lose some wall space behind it sometimes if it opens directly up to the wall. You have to have clearance space and everything. So I wanted all pocket doors. I'm obsessed with pocket doors. And then we wanted wall space, generally speaking, because the main house is mostly floor to ceiling windows. There's very little wall space in there. And my mom loves pictures and my mom loves built-in bookcases. So I wanted a place that we could do that. And then finally, because it is a mid-century modern house and it's really gorgeous, we wanted to adhere to that style. So the doors, the windows and stuff that we put in, the exterior of it, we wanted to adhere to board and batten style of a Cliff May house, the original doors that are on the main house as well. We want it all to blend in seamlessly. And then one final thing that wasn't important to me, but I know it's important to my mom. Basically, she's a vampire. I don't know why she agreed to buy this house because it is so many windows, and she likes to shut herself off in the dark. So because the house on the one side is like so close to the property line and is where we keep our trash cans and everything and is where the sun comes up in the morning, there are no windows on the one side of the house and there are no windows on the front of it as well because it's south facing. This area is darker than the rest of the house and I did that for her. So with all that in mind, I drew up this lovely little plan that I'll throw up here on the screen for you. You'll also see there's an exterior door to the backyard because that's where we plan on putting a pool in the, God willing, near future. Once you have your plans ready to go, you will need to get your professionals lined up. This is a difficult task. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on this because we are nearly finished and I want to make sure the project gets wrapped up without any more hitches. But here are some tips. It is important that your contractor and architect work well together. Ours did. We were recommended a contractor by some friends, and he had an architect that he worked with frequently and was his cousin, is his cousin still. When you are working with these professionals, you want to make sure, first and foremost, that there is a paper trail. Any conversation you have, document it. Shoot an email to them afterwards saying, hey, great call today. I'm glad we agreed on point A, point B, point C. Right? You can't expect them to remember everything and you can't expect yourself to remember everything, and just having that paper trail is going to be incredibly helpful along the way. Be incredibly detailed about what you want. Now, I drew a floor plan, but the measurements weren't all perfectly there because I anticipated that the architect would have that taken care of. It was really important to me that some of the doors and the windows lined up with the main house. And they ended up not, because they just kind of took at face value what my drawings were and didn't work to line them up in place. Now, if they went ahead and they tried to line things up and told me, hey, this door can't line up with this if you want this much space for bookshelves, or your kitchenette is going to go here, that would have been fine. Like, I would have loved to have talked through that. It didn't happen. They just kind of bulldozed their way through. So make sure you are so upfront about exactly what you want and the things that are really important. And again, put it in writing. You can't trust that the people that you're working with have your project at top of mind. It's the biggest thing that's going to be going on in your life at that time for however many months it goes on. They have other builds that they're working on. They have other projects that they're working on. So again, that paper trail is going to help them remember what you want, but just know that when you kind of casually bring something up, they may not fully understand what you're talking about because they've got other projects that they're thinking about. So on that note, when there are revisions, have them sit down and go through them with you in person if you can, but like make the time to sit down. As a former project manager, I am just so used to like everyday meetings and constant confirmation from all parties that like this is the way that we're moving and proceeding, and that didn't happen here. We didn't have those kinds of sit downs and discussions. It just kind of happened as it happened. So on that note, be prepared to know your region's building department. All of the work that we did was with the city of Anaheim. It wasn't county based, it was city based. And I think they saw me more than most homeowners that they see because I would go to City Hall and I would talk to the building division because I wanted to get the answers for myself. I wanted to know what was going on. I wanted to make sure that I was aware of all of the changes or rules or regulations and why, a certain thing couldn't be done this way or that way. I needed to know the reason why, and I needed to make sure I was talking to like the building division's manager is not just, a clerk or something who may not have all the answers. Our project got a little bit complicated, and so it did get pushed up towards like supervisory levels. Rules weren't bent or reinterpreted for us, but there was context that was needed. So I just, I think I met everybody in my city's building division. And if you are working with those people, just be nice, be kind, smile, ask them how their day is, compliment them on their nails, be a human. I am nearly confident that the professionals that we worked with think I'm an uptight and that's probably true. It is true. But a lot of times I would be careful about how I was saying things. I didn't want to hurt feelings and stuff. But if they already think you're an uptight you might as well live up to the title. Go full throttle. Be a Karen. Just embrace your inner Karen, I guess. You're living with this house. You're going to have this house, this space for hopefully the rest of your life, right? It's important that it is what it's supposed to be. We had our kitchen done a couple of years ago, and there's still things that I look at that drive me crazy because it wasn't done correctly. And do you know how much it's going to cost to fix it versus how much it's going to be to do it right up front? You know? Once the planning is done and you're moving on to the build, I can't complain too much about this part because we had a really great construction team. The contractor hires the construction team, and the guys that we worked with were really great. Anytime there was a mistake that was made by the architect, I could talk to the construction guy and he could wiggle within what was on the plan and what was expected by the inspectors that were coming to figure out a way to make everybody happy. I will say that this was a very weird time for us to do construction during the summer of 2025 because there were the ice raids happening in Los Angeles and guys were getting picked up at Home Depots and Lowe's and that sort of thing. My team, I know, was very concerned about it. I told them if they needed me to go pick anything up for them, I would happily do that. I made them understand very clearly what my position was on the entire situation and that I was on their side and I would protect them and as best as I could. One of the more frustrating aspects of the build was working within Title 24, which is California's energy code. It's mandatory efficiency standards that they update every couple of years. And when you have a historic house and when you're trying to maintain the character of that historic house, it's really not fun to work within. There are a bunch of things that were required in here. For instance, there's a fan above me and it's supposed to run 24/7. It just turned on. I don't know if you can hear it in the microphone, but I'm sitting here with a wand and I keep turning it off. Let's count and see how many times I do it within the video. There were so many rules and regulations that were so unyielding and quite frankly not necessary. That exhaust fan it does nothing for the size of the space that we're in. But a lot of that stuff was required and the architect threw it in at the end and didn't tell us he was putting it in. And I love floor plans, but I don't know how to read technical drawings. And so I would come out here and the construction workers would be putting something in, like a fan there, or they cemented in the rafters on the side of the house because where it was with the property line, so fire codes required that to be done, but I was never told. So I came home after giving birth to find the beautiful mid-century modern rafters of the house completely covered up and stuccoed in. And I almost had a heart attack. I can't imagine this one little fan is actually saving that much energy. It is something I'm probably going to turn off. I'm going to find the line for it in the breaker box and just flip it off because it's obnoxious. It turns on every 5 minutes and I need this place to be quiet for recording. My mom needs this place to be quiet for sleeping. She was freaking out all night long because it just kept flipping on and off and on and off. So how much energy is it saving if people keep turning it off? You know? During the process, you're also going to have to deal with inspectors. Some of the inspectors we worked with were great. Some of them were horrible and downright racist and would speak to our construction team with such little regard. I would make sure I was out here for every inspection, A, because I wanted to know what was or wasn't being approved, and B, I didn't want them to be talked down to. We had one inspector come out and he had a hard time adding 2 + 1 because he was talking about the size of the plumbing pipe. And he was telling us it wasn't enough. And I said, why isn't it enough? And he said, it's not going to cover all the bathrooms you have in your house. And I said, how many bathrooms does this size pipe cover? And he was like, 4. And I said, okay, there are 2 in the house and there's 1 out here. And he goes, okay. Okay, that's 3. Yeah. So just be kind to the inspectors though as well, because they have the ability to say yes or no on something or really give you a hard time. It's frustrating. It is what it is. I wish that it was more regulated. I'll say that what's kind of complicated too is that, at least in California has like state regulations for building codes, but then municipalities get to add things onto that. So something that we heard often was, oh, I don't have to do this in other places. I don't have to do this in this city. I don't have to do this in this city. And it's like, well, yeah, but you're in this city, so you actually do have to. It's not a like preference thing. So if you can work with professionals who know your city's codes, excellent. I mentioned that keeping the integrity of the house was really important to me. As you can see behind me, this is like one of the original support beams for the garage. And I said, that needs to stay here because it has the height markers of what I assume maybe is one of the original families that lived in this house. They're height markers for Debbie and Jeanette in the 60s. So if you know Debbie or Jeanette, who is roughly, let me see, how does that math? If you know a Debbie or Jeanette who are in their late 60s and lived in Anaheim, let me know, because I'd like to be in touch with them and show them their height marker. But the other thing is that this house is made of post and beam, and so there are these really cool beams along the edges of the house. And I said, I want to keep that. I want the drywall to come up to it and stop so that that beam is there and we maintain the integrity of the build. But California Title 24 or fire standards require that the drywall goes all the way up. And look, I don't want to poo-poo fire standards. I don't want to think that I'm better than them or that I am holier than Mother Nature herself. Like, obviously, I live in California and I saw what the wildfires did earlier this year, so I don't want to be cavalier about that. But it also is very frustrating when you're like, this is history and I want to maintain it, and you're not allowed to. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts around it. I would have loved to have found a way to maintain the integrity of the home while also adhering to some kind of a fire standard. Like, I would have loved to have found somebody to work those things in together, you know? If there's a will, there's a way. That's what I'm saying. All told, this process took a long time. We had plans submitted, I want to say September of last year. It's September 2025 right now. So it's been a year, a full year. I will say the architect held a lot of that up because we thought he was working on plans, but he had submitted them. The city said they're ready for a review, and he didn't do anything about it until we got in touch and said, hey, what's going on? We have been held up by some inspections. We're being held up by inspection right now because the city had approved plans for us to put a car charger on the front of the house. That's not allowed by the code of the building code of the city. Car chargers are supposed to be on the sides of houses or hidden. So we found a way around that. We said, okay, well, what if we do some landscaping? Okay, that's fine. So we put some landscaping up. But then somebody else got wind of our plans, took a look at them and said, oh, hey, wait, all the wiring is wrong for that. The architect and their diagrams, the diagrams that the architect submitted have been incorrect this whole time for the kind of charger that's on the front of the house. Did I tell the architect what kind of a car charger I had? Did I show it to him when the whole project started? Yes, I did. Did I have the installation guide that tells you the kind of wire you need for such a thing? Absolutely I did. Did he pay any attention to that? Absolutely not, he did not. Now the car charger has been separated from the ADU, so the ADU has passed final inspection, but the car charger part of it is still a mess, and so I have to work with the contractor to bring an electrical team out for the 4th time to perhaps reinstall conduit and definitely rerun lines to that car charger. The one that I've had this entire time that I've told people a dozen times at least. This is the one that we're using. This is what we're doing. So in wrapping this up, what are some tips I would have? A, don't be a woman. People don't take you seriously as one. So if you have a husband or a brother or somebody who can parrot what you know as a lady to men working on the project for you that will take them more seriously than they'll take you, go that route. But it's just me and my mom, and my infant son is not able to speak yet, so I couldn't have him do it for me. If you're a guy watching this though, you're good. Don't worry about that part. The other part about being a woman during this process is I was pregnant the whole time. So if I got frustrated about a thing, I was told, well, I know that you're upset because you're pregnant. No, I'm upset because I'm upset. I was actually more calm during my pregnancy than I've ever been in my whole life. Depressed, but calm. What else would I change? I think you get it now. I obviously would have worked with a different architect. I would have been on top of the timeline a little bit more. I would have asked constantly, how long is this going to take? When are you submitting this? When does this need to be submitted by? I don't know if it's possible to work with a contractor that has a project manager who handles those things, or to work with a contractor that has more project management skills. I don't know, but I only know what I know, and I know that I would have kept a calendar of these things. Overall, I am happy with the outcome. It did turn out the way that I wanted it to in terms of looks and finishes and that sort of thing. Nana is very unhappy with the toilet placement. I am fine with it. I didn't want the toilet in front of the tub because I didn't want to sit in front of a toilet while I washed my son in the tub. I wouldn't say it's like the best place to have it where it's right in front of the door, and there's a window right above it, but we're going to be covering it up with a film, or we've talked about doing a really cool like stained glass thing in front of it. So I'm less worried about the window aspect of it. I am somebody who keeps the bathroom door closed, so it just doesn't matter to me. I am so excited that this place is done, and then I'm not pregnant, so I can easily move things and build things and get things in and out of here. As I mentioned earlier, Nana is planning on being here full time now. So in order for all of that to happen, we've got to prepare the house in Orlando to sell. And so we are making our first trip with an infant cross country. I am excited and nervous and like stoked to plan. So there's going to be a video coming up about how I plan on taking an infant cross country. I am excited for him to meet all of his family in Florida. I'm really excited for him to get into Nana's pool over there. Not excited about the heat, but everything else. So stay tuned for the baby travel content. Subscribe if you want to see that. And as a last note, I know that the video content has been a little bit diverse here because I'm kind of trying to figure out what I want to show. I think I've mentioned before that yes, these videos are for YouTube, but I also just kind of want to document where my life is at so I can show this to Oscar when he grows up and say like, look at, this is your first year. This is what your childhood was like. So I have a feeling the content is going to remain diverse, but I do want to know what people want to see more of. Sometimes it's more difficult when you have a blank white sheet of paper than if somebody were to give you 4 colors of paint and say, paint a picture with these, you know? So I hope you enjoy these tips. I hope you stick around. I will do a tour of the whole house soon. I just wish that it was more finished, but I think I'm always going to wish it's more finished because it's a 70-year-old house. This is a work in progress. It's a living document. I am constantly working on it. If you tuned in last week, I didn't finish with the plants in the back. It's just been too hot. So have a great week, everybody.